myself, and I'm representing Kweller Prep, where I'm the senior director for college admissions at Kweller Prep. We're located in Forest Hills. We have, those of you who don't know us, we're one of the biggest test prep companies and college advisors in Queens and in New York City. We've had a very successful, long history helping students, mostly from Queens, with a variety of services, and that's the contact information. I know it's not Townsend Harris, so part of that, Forest Hills High School, and whoever else is joining. So welcome. So the first installment of this 10 presentations, the series, is on the Common App. So a little bit about my background. So I've actually been a recruiter for the University of Michigan, and I coordinate with their admissions office. So I really have a lot of inside information. One of the other things that I also do this privately. So for many, many years, I've been helping many students with success in the college admissions process by there's a strategy, there's finding the best fit, there's so many elements to this complicated process, and it is daunting. And the decision of what college your student will go to is enormous, because that 4 years could influence the next 50 years in the career. So it's very important to invest the time and effort to make the right decision. And finding an outside advisor and guide is worth the investment. So one other thing about my background, when my son was in high school, he went to Townsend Harris High School. He graduated 3 years ago. And I had all this knowledge and expertise in college admissions. So it meant a lot to me to share it with the Townsend Harris community. So I actually became the co-president of the PTA, where I gave presentations. So that meant a lot to me. So this is just kind of a continuation of that, helping parents with this important process. So anyway, for tonight, the overview is the personal statement. We're going to talk about the Common App first. Actually, this is supposed to be another bullet point. Then the personal statement, kind of giving this overview. College admissions, just kind of giving you kind of an insider's guide to how the admissions process works. And time permitting, we'll touch on the supplemental essays. And by the way, in the chat, it would help me actually if you can give any questions, because that kind of slows me down and also gives me some feedback. So please feel free to write questions in. And also, if you have a question, I actually encourage hearing your voice. So if you would like to unmute and ask a question, there'll be times where I can ask a question during the presentation, but you can always chat me a question. This is the series of presentations that Kweller Prep is going to be giving. I'm going to copy this link and put it in the chat. So, okay, you should get that link. Okay. Okay, so the overview of the process. Many of you, mostly parents, if students are participating tonight, you're more than welcome. But I'm expecting to speak mostly to parents. And if it's your first child that's in this process, it is very intimidating. And it is worth of course, well worth the effort to do it right. You go through this process. Each student will only go through it once, and it's a crucial process. Okay, so basically, the way that you're going to, a student's going to present their information to colleges is through the Common App. And I'm sure you've all heard of it. There's about 1,000 colleges, pretty much all the selective colleges and most colleges use the Common App. There are some exceptions, notably MIT, University of Wisconsin, Georgetown. They're holdouts, but pretty much all the name schools you will probably have heard of use it. The CUNY system does not. The SUNY system does. So it's available on August 1st, so winter September. So it is out there. If you haven't already opened an account, we will actually do that soon. I just want to talk about this before I get more into the Common App. So it is intimidating. So there are 2,000 colleges out there. So the question is, how do you find out about them? How do you learn about them? It goes far beyond just talking to your friends or following what previous students have done in previous years at the high school that your student goes to. So it's very important to do the research. So I'm recommending these. I actually have a summary of resources. So let me actually share that document. I'm going to give you a lot of documents to support the presentation. So this is going to be very helpful, I hope. Let me share that with you. That. And then I'm going to share this. So this is resources. I'm assuming you're getting this chat, hopefully. Someone chat me back, actually, to see if you're receiving this. Have you been seeing the chat, folks? It is kind of like I'm talking. I really don't have that feedback. So if someone could chat me, if you're receiving that. Thank you. And let me continue. So one of the things I just want to touch on this, the FIS guide. So that's the only, doesn't exist online. So it's actually a book. And it is essential. So it is the one thing that's, like, I would say, is a must-have. The FIS guide to colleges. I have it listed up here. It's on the document I just shared with you. It's about $25 or so. It's a pretty thick book, so I have like 3 or 4 pages in each college, but the descriptions are really helpful. There's no substituting for visiting the colleges. That's really important. You get especially if you've narrowed your list down, you're really gonna get the most from visiting. But the next best thing is these YouTube videos that college students post. They're generally excellent. And visit the websites to the colleges. They really try to convey their individual personality and the vibe. And reading the college newspapers, which are usually online. So yeah, those are all helpful. That's the document that I shared with you. Okay, now it's back to the Common App. So the main challenge of the Common App are the personal statement, which is an essay. I'm going to talk about it more, but it's basically you know about it. It's difficult to do because the student really has to be able to convey who they are and their personality, and it's difficult to do when you do it to strangers. It's a difficult process for many students. It's not something that you've typically done in an English class. This is kind of somewhat of a different kind of essay. The other main challenge is the extracurricular activities, which are listed in the activity section. So it lists up to 10. You don't have to populate all 10, but there's room for 10. And then there's supplemental essays. Some colleges require them, and some do not. Most do. Most will require typically 1. And then there's also a section for honors and awards. Okay, so for the Common App, so parents can create their own account, or they can share their student's account and just check on them. But it can't hurt to open your own account just to see what's in there. So if you go to commonapp.org, if you go to commonapp.org, which let me do that right now with you. So if you go to commonapp.org, this is the landing page you'll be on. And at the top, you can sign in and create an account. So halfway down right there, create an account. And if you look at the choices there, the last choice is for a parent account. So it's not going to count. No school's going to see it, but it lets you see everything that your student sees. If you click that, you put in some basic information, your password, etc. So let me actually jump to what it looks like. Notice in the upper right, it's called a practice account. So I've created one. So let me just walk you through the process here. So there are 5 tabs at the top. All the action really is in the middle tab. So it's the Common App tab. So the reason why they call it a Common App and the reason why this practice has been so successful is there are basic questions that all the colleges want to see. So you do it once rather than repeating it for the 10 or 12 colleges that you will apply to. And you only have to do this part once. So a lot of the beginning is very straightforward. Ask about your family, their family education, the tests that you took, languages that you speak at home. So it's pretty straightforward. Should fill that out. And the last two on the panel on the left, you can see the writing. So these are the prompts. There are actually 6. The 7th one is just any topic. So you can see there are 6 topics that you can use for the personal statement. This personal statement is a maximum of 650 words. That's about a page and a quarter, single spaced. My recommendation is it shouldn't be much less than 600. So you really should be going for that close to the 650. What I found is that typically when you write an essay, this is just, I use the prompts mostly to think about motivating the student if they're struggling for an idea. But usually when you write something that's heartfelt, it's going to, generally speaking, fall into one of those 6 categories. But that can be a challenge to come up with that it shouldn't really anything but be, generally speaking, it's not really that recommended, in my opinion, to write about something that is already in your application. So it shouldn't really be about an achievement so much. It might be about a passion. But the most successful essays about very ordinary things like the relationship with your father or your uncle, fly fishing, a hobby that you have. There was one that was very successful about a boy who walked his dog and looked at the stars at night. And that inspired an interest in astronomy, things of that nature. But a lot of it's about relationships. The topic is really a vehicle that you're going to use to communicate something about who you are. Anyway, let me move on. The second tab is where you're going to populate the list. You can see I already populated the list with 7 colleges. But let me just add, I'll add one. Let me just do that here. So you could add a college, and let's put in Amherst College. So add that. Right. Okay. So you can go to this is my colleges there, and Amherst you can see is added. It's alphabetical. And on the dashboard, it'll give you the update on where you are in the process if you completed the application. So nothing gets sent until you finally send submit. So there's a lot of steps involved. So don't worry about submitting it early. The deadlines, each college has a deadline, of course. There's regular admission and early admission. Be careful. I'm going to share a spreadsheet very soon where you can list the deadlines. But you can't miss the deadline. of course. So here's Colgate. So this is a typical um, college um, that uses the Common App. So the individual universities here, yes, they receive everything you put in the Common App. But in addition to which, they have their own questions, and that's where these individual universities and colleges require attention. So there is a college question. Oh, there says there are no writing questions for this college. Let me just go through this. Each college changes. And by the way, just the prompts have not changed from last year. They're the same prompts. So let's just check this out here. So you can see there's just very basic questions. Okay. You're asking for your major, first and second choice. And then contacts you can see here. Additional questions. Okay, this Colgate, actually, it's an interesting change because I actually followed that college, and they used to require a supplemental essay, and it doesn't seem that they have it this year. But many do. Many of the selective colleges do have a the Northwestern, for example. Questions here. We have writing supplement. This is Northwestern, which is outside of Chicago. So they have one question. It's 300. You can see here they have two questions. One is 300 words. Let's read this together. We want to be sure we're considering your application in the context of your personal experiences. What aspects of your background, your identity, or your school, community, and or household setting may have shaped how you see yourself engaging in Northwest community, be it academically, extracurricularly, politically, socially, or otherwise. So this is one form of the why us essay. So a lot of colleges want to know your passion for that school, what you can offer that school. And I have a second question here. Okay. This is the organizer that I was referring to. I'm going to share this as well. So this, you can put down the dates on the spreadsheet. Actually have an example of other students who've used it on one of the tabs. So look at that on the bottom. You'll see different tabs, and I give examples where it has been populated to give you an idea of how it might look. So let me share this with you as well. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me go on. Just so there are actually other ways to apply besides the common application. One is QuestBridge. So that's a special application. It does have an income limit of about, I think it's about $65,000 a year in household income. And they have a process, a matching process, so it is binding. But they have like nearly all the most selective colleges in the country participate. So it might be something to consider. Just go to the QuestBridge and see if you qualify. When they do match you, all of the students get a full ride. So there's no cost at all, which is quite remarkable. So a lot of these schools are $85,000. The less selective schools are usually over $80,000, and they give you a full ride for 4 years. So it's quite remarkable. The other is Coalition for College. That's not as common. You should just be aware of it. Okay, so admission strategies. Let me just talk about that. I mean, there's so many things to this, to getting into a college, right? But let me just talk just generally, if I might, from personal experience. So the college admissions process, you should think of it as more of a like a two-way process. So the student is trying to apply to the colleges, and the college is trying to find the student. If the student really does diligent work, they really do their research and put their effort into finding the college that fits them the best, where they'll thrive and they'll grow, and they feel that the culture is sort of connecting with them, it's vibing with them, there's a good chance that the admissions office will see the same thing. Because these people are experts. They tend to be very young, often in their 20s. These are the people that are on the front line. They're going to be the ones reading your application. So they have this idealistic motivation to try to find the right fit, find the right student, and they're putting a lot of effort into it. So the point I'm making is when they're both on the same page and they're connecting, there's that marriage, and they will be accepted because they're looking for the fit. Do you really fit? It's not just about prestige, and that's one of the traps that a lot of students fall into. They want the most prestigious school or the school that their friends are applying to. But if you can open up also the thing about traveling, I understand the advantage of being nearby, but if you want to be just a little bit open-minded, there are 2,000 colleges out there, and some of them are spectacular just because they're not as well known. So just keep an open mind about that. That's something that I always kind of think about. That's the best kind of way of doing is looking at the colleges, just as a general kind of strategy. That's where you have to do the research. So they're looking for diversity in who you are. So diversity means many things. In geography, for example, if you're from a smaller state like Montana or Idaho, that's going to give you an advantage because it's something that's different. The perspective of the admissions office is that they want to choose students that are going to make the community as a whole richer and more, having different outlooks and different opinions and different talents. So that's where I have that quote there. I put a circle with a spike in it. So it kind of captures the essence that, yes, a student should be rounded, of course, but the spike is that special talent. And that's going to be a very important part of a successful application. So you want to create a theme in the application that's consistent. So you have one special talent, whether it be music or art or working in the community or the environment, whatever it might be. You want to have something consistent that speaks to that throughout the application. And that's something that's going to resonate with the admissions officers. Again, you want to, the successful applicant will understand the perspective of the admissions officer. Is that a question? Yeah, if you want to, guys, you could text me a question. I don't know if I'm saying things that are confusing or not clear. So feel free to put that in the chat. Okay. Okay, actually, I'm going to take a break right here just to take some questions. We're going to continue. Let me see if there's anyone in the chat as I look in the chat right now. This is a good chance. If you have a question, I'm not clear so far. I've given a lot of information, so there might be some uncertainty.
And you can type any questions you have into the chat box.
That's right. Please. Yeah. One moment. I'll just be right back.
Everyone, if you have any questions, please use this time. Type it into Bill because we have a chat with host feature on the chat box. So please use this opportunity.
Okay, so no takers on the questions. Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me talk about the college list. Again, this is be an overview of the entire process. So there is really no theoretical limit to how many colleges you can apply to, and many students do apply to even 20 colleges or more. I don't recommend that, and the reason is this. If you really do your homework, which is what I really recommending, putting the effort in to finding the colleges, it's hard to find more than 10 or 12 colleges that you'll really be a true fit at. So when you're getting past that number, it's just, you're just sort of just like picking colleges because they're there, right? So it's kind of like the challenge, limit the list to 12 or less. And then the other thing is the early admission issue. So with early decision, and most private colleges have early decision. I think nearly all of them do. The publics have early action. The difference is early decision is binding. So when it comes to early decision, the deadline is in the first half of November. Typically the 1st of November or the 15th are the two most common dates. It's a very like, excuse me, legally binding. So it has a lot of gravity. So you really want to, if you're going to go that route, it does give you a boost for most schools, not necessarily the Ivy League schools, but most colleges playing early decision will give you a boost because it's sort of the ultimate commitment, the ultimate expression of your desire to go there. It's what they call demonstrated interest. So there's nothing stronger than that. So if you do the work now and you're thinking about it, and one school really appeals to you, that's one way to go. There are financial aid issues actually with that. Those of you who need will apply for financial aid. And since it is binding, that could be an issue because you're probably less likely to receive what they call merit aid. So there's two forms of aid that colleges will give you. It's either need-based aid or merit aid. The top 20 colleges in the country, roughly speaking, top 20 or so, don't give merit aid. So all the aid that you need is provided. There's going to be a financial aid presentation, but this one thing that I don't think I have it here, the net price calculator. So those words, let me put that in the chat because this is quite important here. Since I'm mentioning this topic, I don't want to leave that out. I know financial aid is an important component in this process. So let me just share that with you. So net price calculator. I'm not going to go into too much detail on the financial aid issue. So every college in the United States is required by federal law to have a net price calculator on their website. So if you go to the website, you just type it in the search box, those 3 words, net price calculator, and it has to be accurate. So they will have to tell you what their need-based amount of money you'll give, and it'll only take about 10 to 15 minutes to fill it out, based on your income and your assets, home, if you have a second home or a business. They ask basic questions, and it'll tell you how much money you'll get in grants. So strictly grants. Okay. The ID number for the Common App is when the student fills it out, as a parent is asking this question, is your email address. So, and then the password. And when is the deadline? So for early decision, early action, it's typically in the first half of November. And the regular decision is typically in the first half of January. The advantage of regular decision is that, say you apply to 12 colleges and you get into 5 of them. So now sort of the tables have turned. So you will look at the 5 colleges and you can visit them in April. So you'll find out in typically late March for regular decision. For early decision, it's usually 5 or 6 weeks. You'll find out if you were accepted or not. For regular decision, it's the end of March. And say you get 5 acceptances. In April, there'll be like accepted students days. You visit the schools and you choose among those 5. The other thing is you look at the financial aid packages that they offer. That's going to be much more competitive because many schools do offer merit aid. Merit aid is sort of a sweetener. So if they really want you, they get to sweeten their merit aid. It is negotiable too. So that's one thing that I'll add right now. It is negotiable. The aid package is negotiable. Okay. Oh, and the breakdown. So 1 to 2 reach colleges. Those are colleges where you're not likely to get in, but you have a kind of an outside chance. But they're dream colleges. And 5 to 8, I would say target colleges. So those are schools that you sort of like about 50% chance of getting in, and then safety school. Okay. So let me move on here. So again, this process of identifying the list, something of course that Kweller Prep would do. It's a big part of the process because this list is the college that you will wind up going to is going to have to be among the list. So you really want to choose very wisely. So there are many, many resources. I already touched on some earlier, but I just wanted to touch on the college search engine. So there's some search engines out there. It's actually on the list. So that's one way of putting it in. Basically, put in things like location, the size of the school, your scores, that sort of thing, and they kind of like help you a little bit. No presentation as an introduction would be complete without at least talking about the U.S. News ranking. So it is the gold standard. So that all these schools, in a crazy way, compete for the position on this list. It does correlate to how selective the schools are. But one of the single biggest thing I can share with you about the colleges is really like the fit. Do you feel comfortable at the school? Will you be challenged, but not over your head challenged, but you want to be challenged? And honestly, the curriculum and the books that they use and the content of different colleges is basically the same. I mean, there's physics, anthropology, literature. It's essentially the same. What is the difference? The biggest difference to me is they are the students. You're going to be probably learning. Students will probably be learning more from their classmates, their club, the students on their club, the clubs that they join, or if they're on a sports team or a club team or intramural team. That's where you're really going to make the difference. You're making lifelong friends. You're learning from them. Like I was saying earlier about this circle with the spike in it. You're going to be learning about people that are going to turn you on to something you never heard of, were not aware of, say, musicians or actors or theater producers, so many different things. And you want to be comfortable at the school because they each have a unique personality. So the U.S. News rankings, they put in 16 factors, and they're ranked. And there's 2 parallel lists. So there's universities and liberal arts colleges. That is the link. You could just Google U.S. News rankings. Actually, I created a document that kind of summarizes it. So I'll share that with you. You could also go to, of course, the website, U.S. News. So let me change that here. U.S. News. There you go. Okay. Okay. I have one question that I'll a couple questions actually. So just one parent, Diane, is asking, our son plays basketball. Do they have to fill out an application if they are being recruited? So if you're a recruited athlete, that by a college, it's a whole process of how that works. But you would have to usually apply early decision. And if you're being recruited, you're almost certainly going to get in. They'll let you know as part of that process. But basically, it almost guarantees that your acceptance. So you would have to apply early. And the recruitment process already has been happening before. This is kind of late in the game to be recruited. So early decision is binding. So one parent is asking, can I explain it? So there are 3 different contracts that have to be signed. One is by the parent, one is by the student, and one is by the student's guidance counselor at school. So it'll say in there that if you're accepted, you're legally bound to go. There's some like threatening language if you don't, and if you break that contract, it makes the school look really bad. The high school, it could hurt future students. So it's really something you have to think about before you apply a decision. It is really binding. The other thing about binding is typically when you're applying, you're also maybe applying to other schools, like early action, if it's November. You have to withdraw all your applications typically in 10 days if you're accepted early decision. So you can find out that acceptance in like typically the first half of December, like December 15th or so, give or take. Then you get the result. Okay, I hope I answered that question. Okay, so there's this daunting process that I'm saying daunting. It's kind of like a learning curve. It's a challenging process to learn about the schools because there's so many out there. And so, you know, do not take, I strongly advise against taking sort of a lackadaisical attitude. Again, you know, there's 4 years, this college, you want this to be right. You don't want to have to transfer. You're not happy. It's laying the groundwork for the rest of your life. I mean, college plays such a big role. It could influence what you're going to major in. It could influence your career. It can influence these connections you make, lifelong connections. So you really want to choose very wisely. So I want to talk about that. So I already mentioned a bunch of different things. So these are some of the things that I found success with. So this is YouTube video. This on the lower right, this was at Case Western Reserve. So this student on the right is giving a tour. So there are countless videos like that out there. One of my favorites is Dominique Cynthia. If you want to copy that name, she has a channel and she's really excellent. So she goes to about 40 or 50 colleges and she asks the same 73 questions. And it really is excellent. Again, it's a learning curve. So you got to do a lot of things to find out about the schools, and then you visit and you kind of revise your list, your college list, and hopefully you get it down to about 10 schools or so. So let me share this document. So these are just kind of ways that you can learn about the school. These are just examples I've sent to the college newspapers, just kind of get you rolling on that. So let me share this. Again, I'm going to share that in the chat. So getting the vibe. There we go. Another helpful document, courtesy of Kweller Prep. Okay, so let me just scroll back very quickly. So it's very important to look at this picture here. When I talked about the rankings here. So notice there's a liberal arts list and a university list. Now, not every ranking service has that. U.S. News really does stand apart. They are the sort of unofficial standard, gold standard for that. So they do. So the question would be like, why would they divide the college universe into two parallel groups? And they felt that the liberal arts colleges are different enough than the universities to warrant a distinct list. So what is a liberal arts college? So let me touch on that. So I have a little spiel about liberal arts colleges. So one way of illustrating the value of it is to compare like public high schools in New York City, like Townsend Harris or Forest Hills High School. And you find only 5% of students go to a liberal arts college from public schools. But on the elite private school side, so you're talking Dalton, Horace Mann, Collegiate, Trinity, Fieldston, where the parents are really focused on colleges, spending a lot of money in their high school education, so that they tend to be much more like experienced at this. 50%, on average, 50% of the students go to liberal arts colleges. So the message is that these offer fantastic educations, and they really have a lot of value that gets overlooked. Now, what is a liberal arts college? So a liberal arts college does not have a graduate school. So all of the professors there, they do research. It's usually not as heavy advanced research. They do research that's funded by typically the government or some agency of the government. And it's usually, and the research tends to be more relatable to an undergraduate. So and the teachers are focused on teaching, not on research. They do research, yes, but it tilts more towards the teaching. So you could tend to have generally more better teachers in smaller class sizes. The size of the school. So liberal arts schools have 2,000 students, give or take. whereas the universities, the private universities are going to be more like between like 5 and 10,000, and the public flagship universities are typically 15 to 40,000. So you can see there's a size difference here. And financial aid is excellent at the liberal arts colleges, so that would not be a reason not to consider them. But it's out there. You have one shot at this, one bite of the apple when you're a senior in high school to apply. So you do not want to overlook this. So this is what I was saying before. Like I break these into 3 buckets. So you can see that the size of the school, kind of the nature of it, why is liberal arts different? So you can see it there. And public versus private. So public universities, just to touch on that, they tend to have much larger classes. The student faculty ratio, you can see it's about twice as much as a private liberal arts college. So public universities, actually, you can break that down to in-state and out-of-state. So if you're in-state, it's funded by the state. So any in-state doesn't have to be just New York with the SUNY or CUNY system, but every state has a public university system. And typically there's 1 or 2 or 3 flagships of the publics. So a state like Pennsylvania, as an example, has 2 flagships, University of Pittsburgh, Pitt, and Penn State, Pennsylvania State University. But there are like 20 other campuses. So that's typically how it works. In-state gets a big price discount, so tuition for in-state students is, no matter what state it is, it's usually about 10 or 12,000. But out of state, it can vary everywhere from 25 to 50,000. If you're out of state, so it's like University of Michigan. If you were to be a New York State resident and go there, the price is very, very high. It's like the tuition is about 45 or 50,000 for that school. Penn State is about 30 tuition thousand if you're out of state. So this kind of just gives you an idea. So you don't want, again, you don't want to leave any stone unturned. So this is you want to include flagship publics. Some of them are quite good. The state university system, which we'll have a presentation next time on that, actually. But just in a nutshell, there are 3 flagships in the SUNY system. So it's Binghamton, Stony Brook, and Buffalo. There are about 15 other campuses. So be careful of financial aids. That's one thing that really is an issue. So if you're going out of state, like the University of Maryland or Rutgers or University of Connecticut or whatever, and you're not a state resident, they do not give very good financial aid at all. The sticker price is less. So whereas the sticker price, the full price for tuition, not room and board, but tuition at a private college is typically about 45,000. The state school will be less, it'd be 30,000. So you're saving money there, but the private colleges generally give you a lot more aid depending on the school. So the amount of aid you get, again, I don't want to talk too much about financial aid, but I do feel that you should know some basic facts. So financial aid generosity is actually tied very much to how selective a school is. So students that are out there who are listening, parents, if your student has done well in school and is a strong candidate, one of the rewards is financial aid. So financial aid is more generous for the schools that are higher ranked on that U.S. News list. So the U.S. News list is a guide to kind of how selective and how selective and generous they are financially. Okay, so there's Naviance. So every public school in public high school in New York subscribes. So the Department of Education has already paid for that. So by the time a student is a senior, most juniors actually have access to Naviance. So you get a access. So you get an account. And Naviance is extremely important. One of the reasons why 2/3 of all high schools in the United States use it, actually. One of the reasons why it's so popular is because that is the portal that the schools use, the guidance officers use to communicate to the colleges on their students list. So when they're sending in the school report, the school profile, the letters of recommendation, the transcript, most importantly, that's communicated through Naviance. It's a different portal, but it's the same basic application, Naviance. So for example, when typically you'll have 2 letters of recommendation that I believe most schools have 1 or 2 letters of recommendation. So that's the teacher writes the letter, sends it to the guidance office, and the guidance office uploads it to the list. So you're going to hear this in case every school is different, but they absolutely should communicate to the student that the list here on the Naviance has to be accurate. because those are the schools that are going to get the crucial transcripts, right? And the letters of recommendations. You really want to make sure the list is accurate, and it should match ultimately what's on your Common App. So the Common App, that's what the student submits, and then there's a bunch of information like the transcript that the high school submits. Okay, I know there's a lot of information. I'm trying to give an overview. So this is one of the most, from a student's perspective, one of the most popular things is the scattergram. So again, take this with a grain of salt, because there's so many components to the college admissions process, so many components to it. They use the word holistic over and over again. Holistic means that they're looking at the whole student, everything. Letters of recommendation play a huge role, their essays, their activities, besides the numbers. But to quantify it, they use, it's hard to quantify a lot of those things. So one of the things they quantify is the GPA and your scores. And you can see, this is just meant to guide. You can see the green check marks, that's the students that got into this school. And you can see there's a cloud in the upper right, but you can see many students were not in that cloud who got in. But it just kind of gives you a rough idea of where you stand. So that's useful as you're narrowing down your list. Because a lot of parents will say, like, how do I know how likely I'll get in? Well, that's one way of doing it. One way, it's a very crude way, it's very broad, but it gives you a kind of a sense of it. So some of the things that you just want to think about when you're developing your college list are these things I kind of listed them there: where it's located, how far you're willing to travel, keep an open mind, religious affiliation. For example, many of the top schools are Roman Catholic, and you might want to go there, but they have a different feel to it, perhaps. Of course, you have to visit the school. The sports, the social scene. A lot of colleges don't have Greek life. That's fraternities and sororities. Some do. Some have small. It could be like 10%. Some are like 40%. So, those are all factors that you want to consider. Again, you want to visit the school and really research this up. I talked about early decision, early action. Again, early action is primarily for public colleges. Early action is not binding. You do apply in November, typically. Usually find out in 6 weeks, the result, but it's not binding. So you can apply to multiple schools early action and do regular decision. So you have your cake and eat it too. So you can apply to like the University of Maryland and the SUNYs. You'll find out in a few weeks. And then you still can go through the regular decision process in January. So now you have a bunch of schools that you can compare to. Early decision is restricted to private colleges. So public colleges do not have binding early decision. Okay. Yeah, I'll just skip that. It's kind of a confusing thing there. Okay, so more questions. Are there any other questions right now? I'm going to kind of wind down here. I have some things there. Are there any questions about that? Let's see here. I'm just reading some questions. So what are the deadlines for the colleges? So the deadlines are on the Common App. You populate the spreadsheet. But you also want to go to the college websites. So that's a must. So you should be visiting each individual college website and going to the admissions pages and learning about it. A lot of them give you tips, tips on how to write the essay, or they'll have videos they'll have a college tour. They'll have a virtual college tour. Also have the opportunity to interact with the school and demonstrate interest. And that's important to them. And they want to know how truly interested you are in them, rather than you're just throwing the application out. And it's also research. You're really doing your research on the website. So do go to the really, really important to do the college, visit the college websites. So another parent is asking, my son plays soccer in his high school and for his club teams. He will be looking to be recruited to play college soccer. Does the college team coach have say in determining acceptance? So the recruitment process is kind of a complicated one. There are camps that they have to demonstrate skills, especially Division III. So if you're soccer, they're going to have soccer camps where there are recruiters. They usually don't come to the individual schools, though the coach can reach out to colleges. So you talk to your coach about that, and your coach will also go online, or the coach should know about the recruiting events where they get to observe players and see if there's a good fit there for the team. Typically, teams will take usually 3 students. Like the smaller teams, like fencing, rowing, tennis, they usually will take 3. They have 3 slots. The coaches usually have 3 each year, 3 students who they can recruit. And it's great to be on the list, because if you recruited that way, you typically get guaranteed to get in. Yeah. Okay. The questions there. Just kind of give closing by just saying a few words about how the admissions officers, and I touched on this, how they view the process. So again, they're looking for specialists. They do not want so much generalists. They want specialists to make their community more richer, deeper, more varied. So this is a quote that I like because it captures what I've been talking about. Good colleges are not looking for the well-rounded student. They're looking for the well-rounded class. So something to think about the process. So just to wrap up some basic thoughts. Again, you want to focus on unusual. So that's kind of the theme. So you kind of have, like, even though it's not explicitly asking for a theme, the most successful applications will have a consistent theme that's threaded throughout the different components of the application. The activities, the letters of recommendation even, the essay, and the supplemental essays as well, and the interview as well. So I didn't talk about the interview. So most interviews, the interview is a part of the process. Public colleges don't usually have interviews, but the privates do. Most of the time, the privates will have to reach out to the student. So when you apply, you would hear from a college with that. Some colleges don't. Some colleges, the burden is on the student. So that's why you have to visit the website. So you would have to sign up for it. When you apply to a college, within 24 hours of when they receive the application, within 24 hours, you'll get an email with access to their applicant portal. And so that's password protected. And then in the applicant portal, we'll have all the information about, for example, for interviews, etc. But be sure to check the website, because sometimes you can interview before you apply. For example, the University of Rochester, you have to apply in advance. So I would try to do that sooner rather than later, because they do fill up. Okay, I talked about the fit. We talked about how the admissions officer looks at that, looks at the student. They often say, I've often heard it said that they try to visualize a student walking through campus or walking through a hallway. Would they be a good fit? They're trying to understand who that person is, what makes them tick, what gives them joy, and that's where the essays come in. So they really do enjoy reading the essays. More about that later, because that's one of the 10 presentations we'll be making. Okay, and just touching on the personal statement. This would be the time to start. You should ideally maybe even started it before, but it's definitely not too late. It should be the voice of the student, sharing with the admissions officer who you are, about your personality. It's not easy. What makes an essay successful is something that might not do well in an English class. So you take an English class, something that we get an A in an English class, or would be an excellent newspaper article, would not succeed in the personal essay. So it's really important to know the audience. So there are a lot of resources online, and I'm going to even share this with you. This is actually a very good document that I'll share with you about strategies for the essay. Kind of loading you up with a lot of goodies to help you in this important process. Okay, and that's it. This is the contact information. Kweller, we really do a great job. We take each student very important. It's a personal challenge for us to make sure that the student is successful in this college process. It can be a very emotionally involved process. So consider us. And here's the contact information. So please reach out to us. Let me look at, as I wind down here, I'm just looking at any other questions. If anyone has any other questions. Let me see here. The question about the recent Supreme Court ruling. Yes, that's was a major change. That's why many people are saying that was the biggest change, is where they ruled against affirmative action. That is a big factor. So there is a question on the Common App about ethnic background, but that question is meant for the federal government's requiring that, but colleges are not permitted to see it. So it's suppressed. So it may seem like they're going to find out, but they're not. They do allow questions concerning not so much your race, but how your ethnic background may have affected your life or shaped you in some way. So that's a common essay question in some way, shape, or form, because that's considered the Supreme Court decision. That was considered something that schools may do. There's a safety school. So one parent is asking, have there been students who did not get into any schools they applied for? I never heard of that, really. I mean, it's possible, but the safety school is one we're nearly certain to get into. So that's why we have that backup. Hopefully it won't come down to that. It seldom does. If you do what I say, if you follow my advice and you find the best fit, you'll have success. Is it students that don't have success are not really like thinking about the process. Yeah. Okay. I think that will wrap up. I'm looking for any other questions. This is an overview. I can go back just very quickly to show you in the very beginning. I had a slide on yeah. So yeah, do attend these other ones. Next week, I'm going to actually be giving this presentation. It's on financial aid. So, of course, that's important. How do you pay for this? It's expensive. So that's an important presentation. So I hope to see you there. And I think let me just close this out. Yeah. Okay. And I think if there's no other questions, I think we'll see you next week. I hope it was helpful. And you have the contact information. So reach out to us if you have any other questions. I'm just checking down here. One last question. Parent is asking, we've been told that colleges want well-rounded students who do sports, run clubs, perform public service. It does seem daunting. How can you have the list check boxes? But now you say they want specialists. Should students focus on one thing? Yeah, the answer is it's better to have on like sort of quality over quantity. So have like, it'd be better to have that. Yes, you want to be smart. You want to be diligent. You want to be a hard worker. You want to be social, of course, those things, right? But it is better to have like two things. It's like if they overlap, two or three things that overlap, and you're spending a lot of time on it, and you can speak to it, and you have maybe a recommendation from a coach, or if it's sports or a club, you have the teacher write a letter. Yeah, it's better to have that. So the round circle with a spike. You want to be rounded, but have one specialty. So I hope I answered all your questions, and I'll see you next week. Have a good evening. Take care, everybody.